October 21st, 1985. Monday Night Football. Soldier Field, Chicago. Defensive coordinator Buddy Ryan sat in the coaching booth watching head coach Mike Ditka call William "Refrigerator" Perry's number on offense. Perry, the 335-pound rookie defensive tackle that Ryan had publicly called a wasted draft pick, was lining up at fullback. Ryan grabbed his headset. "This is a disgrace," he told anyone listening. "We drafted a defensive player, and you're using him as a circus act. This is a joke." On the field, Perry took the handoff from quarterback Jim McMahon and bulldozed into the end zone for a 1-yard touchdown. Soldier Field erupted. The crowd was chanting, "Fridge! Fridge! Fridge!" Monday Night Football announcers Frank Gifford and Joe Namath were going crazy. America was watching a 335-pound defensive lineman score a touchdown on national television, something that had never happened in NFL history. Up in the booth, Buddy Ryan turned off his headset. He wasn't watching anymore. His defensive tackle, the player he'd refused to play for the first 6 weeks of the season because he considered him too fat and too slow, was becoming a national phenomenon, while Ryan's carefully constructed 46 defense was being overshadowed by what he considered a publicity stunt. Within 4 months, William Perry would score a touchdown in Super Bowl 20, the most-watched Super Bowl in history at that time. He'd become more famous than any defensive lineman in NFL history. He'd appear in movies, commercials, and music videos. He'd revolutionize how NFL teams thought about using players in multiple positions. And he'd prove that Buddy Ryan, one of the greatest defensive minds in football history, had been completely wrong about him. This is the story of how a 335-pound rookie from Clemson became a cultural icon despite his own defensive coordinator calling him a waste. How the power struggle between Mike Ditka and Buddy Ryan played out through Perry's unlikely stardom, and how the 1985 Chicago Bears, perhaps the greatest NFL team ever assembled, nearly imploded over a rookie defensive tackle who scored touchdowns. William Anthony Perry was born December 16, 1962, in Aiken, South Carolina. He was the 8th of 12 children born to Holly and Inez Perry. The family was poor. His father worked as a factory laborer, but they had plenty of food. By age 10, William weighed over 200 pounds. By high school, he was 300 pounds and still growing. But Perry wasn't just big, he was athletic. He played defensive line, offensive line, and even ran the ball occasionally at Aiken High School. Recruiters were stunned by his combination of size and quickness. At 6'2" and 300 pounds, Perry could move faster than men 100 pounds lighter. He had surprising agility for someone his size. He could do things that physics suggested shouldn't be possible for a man that massive. Clemson University signed Perry in 1981. He became an immediate star on their defensive line. By his junior year in 1983, Perry weighed 335 pounds but was still quick enough to chase down running backs. He was All-American in 1983 and 1984. He earned the nickname Refrigerator partly because of his size, partly because teammates joked he could eat everything in the refrigerator, and partly because opposing offensive linemen felt like they were blocking a refrigerator when they tried to move him. NFL scouts had concerns. Yes, Perry was dominant at the college level, but at 335 pounds, he was considered too heavy for the NFL. Scouts worried about his weight, his stamina, whether he could maintain that size and still perform. Some teams had him rated as a 3rd or 4th round pick. Others thought he'd never make it in the pros. The Chicago Bears, picking 22nd in the first round of the 1985 draft,
they communicated through intermediaries. Players knew that the coaching staff was divided, that you were either Ditka's guy or Ryan's guy. William Perry became the symbol of this conflict. Ditka had drafted him. Ryan refused to play him. For the first 6 weeks of the 1985 season, Perry was inactive on game days. Ryan told the media Perry wasn't ready, that he was too heavy, that other defensive tackles were better. Perry sat on the bench watching the Bears start 6-0, his first-round selection turning into an embarrassment. Perry's weight became a constant source of controversy. He reported to training camp at 335 pounds, which was actually lighter than his college playing weight. But Ryan insisted he needed to be 300 pounds. Perry tried to lose weight, but struggled. His teammates supported him. They saw how hard he worked, but Ryan was relentless. "He shows up at 335 pounds and we're supposed to play him," Ryan said. "That's not a football player. That's someone who can't control himself." Ditka was furious. Perry was his pick. Ryan's public criticism of Perry was indirect criticism of Ditka's judgment. In Week 7 against San Francisco, Ditka decided to force the issue. Not by playing Perry on defense, where Ryan controlled the lineup, but by using him on offense, where Ditka had complete authority. The 1985 Bears had the best defense in the NFL, but their offense was just adequate. Walter Payton, the legendary running back, was in his 11th season and still great, but he needed help. The Bears struggled in short yardage situations. Ditka had been thinking about using Perry as a blocking back or even a runner in goal line situations. Ryan's refusal to play Perry on defense gave Ditka the opening to use him on offense instead. In the game against San Francisco on October 13th, Ditka inserted Perry at fullback in a short yardage situation. The Niners' defense didn't know what to do. Perry blocked, clearing a path for Walter Payton. The play gained 4 yards. The crowd loved it. The next week against Green Bay, Ditka used Perry again. This time Perry carried the ball, gaining 2 yards through sheer power. The novelty was becoming a trend. Then came Monday Night Football against the Packers on October 21st. The Bears were dominating 17-3 when they reached Green Bay's 1-yard line in the second quarter. Ditka called Perry's number. The fridge lined up at fullback. Quarterback McMahon handed him the ball. Perry, all 335 pounds, crashed into the end zone. Touchdown. The first offensive touchdown by a defensive lineman in modern NFL history. America went crazy. Monday Night Football was the highest-rated regular season NFL program. An estimated 30 million people watched Perry score. The image of a 335-pound man bowling over defenders became instant sensation. Sports Illustrated put Perry on the cover. Network morning shows wanted interviews. Late-night talk shows made jokes. Perry was suddenly the most famous player on the most famous team in football. Buddy Ryan was not amused. After the Monday night game, reporters asked Ryan about Perry's touchdown. Ryan's response was cold. "That's offense. I don't coach offense. You'll have to ask Ditka about his toy." The message was clear. Perry's offensive success meant nothing to Ryan. On defense, where Ryan was in charge, Perry was still not playing. The situation escalated. Perry's fame grew with each game. Ditka kept using him on offense, partly because it worked, partly because he enjoyed needling Ryan. Perry scored another touchdown against Detroit on Thanksgiving. He appeared in commercials for McDonald's and other companies. He recorded a music video for the Super Bowl Shuffle, a rap song the Bears recorded predicting their Super Bowl victory. But on defense, Perry remained buried on the depth chart. Ryan finally started playing him in Week 11, but only because injuries to other defensive tackles forced it. When Perry played defense, he was excellent. He was quick for his size, strong, and disruptive. He logged sacks and tackles. He proved that Ryan's assessment of him as too fat to play was wrong. The conflict between Ditka and Ryan reached a breaking point before the playoffs. In a team meeting, Ryan reportedly told defensive players to ignore anything Ditka says and focus only on defensive game plans. Ditka confronted Ryan, and witnesses reported the two men nearly came to blows. Players had to separate them. The team that was 15-1 and favored to win the Super Bowl was being coached by two men who hated each other. The Bears entered the playoffs with the best defense in NFL history statistically. They'd allowed only 198 points in 16 games, the fewest in a 16-game season. Ryan's 46 defense was destroying opponents. But the story everyone wanted to talk about was Perry. Not his defense, his offense. The defensive tackle who'd become a fullback. The refrigerator who was bigger than any offensive player in the league, but scored touchdowns anyway. The Bears crushed the New York Giants 21-0 in the divisional playoff. Perry didn't score but blocked on offense and played defense. The Bears demolished the Los Angeles Rams 24-0 in the NFC Championship game. Perry pancaked Rams defenders. The Bears were heading to Super Bowl 20 in New Orleans to face the New England Patriots, and the question everyone asked was, would Perry score in the Super Bowl?
At that time, with over 127 million viewers, they all saw Jim McMahon hand the ball to Perry. They all saw Perry crash into the end zone. Touchdown. The defensive tackle had scored in the Super Bowl. The stadium exploded. Perry's teammates mobbed him. Ditka was grinning on the sideline. In the press box, Buddy Ryan sat expressionless. The irony was obvious to everyone watching. Ryan's defense had dominated the Patriots. The Bears won 46-10,
the most lopsided Super Bowl victory in history at that time. But the image everyone would remember was Perry scoring, not Ryan's defensive masterpiece. After the game, reporters asked Ryan about Perry's touchdown. Ryan gave grudging credit. He did what Mike asked him to do, good for him, but this game was won by defense, our defense, not circus acts. Even in victory, Ryan couldn't bring himself to fully praise Perry. The 1985 Chicago Bears were one of the greatest teams in NFL history. They finished 15-1 in the regular season. They crushed opponents in the playoffs by a combined score of 91-10. Their defense allowed the fewest points in a 16-game season. They're often ranked as the best NFL team ever. But internally, they were a dysfunctional mess with a head coach and defensive coordinator who despised each other, held together only by overwhelming talent. After Super Bowl 20, Buddy Ryan left to become head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. The power struggle was over. Ditka had won. Perry remained with the Bears, playing both defense and offense for several more seasons. He made the Pro Bowl in 1985 and 1986. He remained popular with fans, but injuries and continued weight problems shortened his career. He played his last game in 1994 with the Philadelphia Eagles, ironically playing for Buddy Ryan's former team. Perry's post-NFL life was difficult. His weight ballooned over 400 pounds. He developed diabetes. He had financial problems from bad investments and excessive spending during his playing days. In 2011, Perry auctioned his Super Bowl ring to pay for medical care. His brother Darrell confirmed that Williams struggled with health issues related to his weight for years. Buddy Ryan went on to coach the Eagles for 5 seasons, creating another dominant defense. He later became defensive coordinator for the Houston Oilers. He never won a Super Bowl as a head coach. When Ryan died in 2016 at age 85, tributes focused on his defensive genius. The 46 defense changed football, but Ryan's stubborn refusal to play Perry in 1985, his public criticism of a rookie, and his feud with Ditka remained controversial parts of his legacy. Mike Ditka coached the Bears until 1992, winning 106 games but never returning to the Super Bowl. He later coached the New Orleans Saints. After coaching, Ditka became a television analyst and restaurateur. He's remembered as one of the most successful and colorful coaches in NFL history. His willingness to use Perry on offense, defying his own defensive coordinator, showed creativity and courage, even if it also reflected his difficult relationship with Ryan. The 1985 Chicago Bears defensive unit deserves special mention. With players like Mike Singletary, Richard Dent, Dan Hampton, Steve McMichael, and Otis Wilson, they were one of the most talented defenses ever assembled. Buddy Ryan's 46 defense made them nearly unstoppable. 9 players from that defense made Pro Bowls during their careers. 4 are in the Hall of Fame. They were dominant in ways that modern defenses rarely achieve. But despite their greatness, the story of the 1985 Bears often focuses on Perry, the defensive tackle who became a fullback, the refrigerator who scored in the Super Bowl, the rookie who was called a wasted draft pick by his own coordinator but became a cultural phenomenon. Perry's fame overshadowed players who were actually better at football. This frustrated Ryan and many defensive players who felt Perry got attention they deserved. The irony is that Perry was actually a good defensive player. When Ryan finally started playing him on defense, Perry performed well. He wasn't as good as veterans like Dan Hampton or Steve McMichael, but he was solid. At 335 pounds, he occupied multiple blockers, freeing up teammates to make plays. His size created problems for offensive lines.
The exception was some defensive players who aligned with Buddy Ryan. They resented Perry's fame and felt Ryan was right that Perry hadn't earned playing time on defense. These players thought Perry was getting preferential treatment because Ditka wanted to spite Ryan. The locker room had factions, and Perry was caught in the middle. The question of whether Perry was actually a wasted draft pick, as Ryan claimed, can be answered with statistics. Perry played 10 NFL seasons. He was selected to the Pro Bowl twice. He had 29.5 career sacks, good for a defensive tackle who played only part-time in some seasons. On offense, he scored 3 touchdowns in regular season games and 1 in the Super Bowl. He was part of a championship team. By any measure, a first-round pick who plays 10 seasons, makes 2 Pro Bowls, and wins a Super Bowl is not a wasted pick. Ryan's criticism of Perry was wrong factually, but it reflected Ryan's broader frustration with Ditka and the organization. Ryan felt undermined. His defense was carrying the team, but Ditka got credit. Ryan had specific ideas about defensive personnel, but Ditka overruled him on draft day. Ryan wanted to win based on defensive excellence, but Ditka wanted entertainment and offense. The Perry situation became proxy for all these frustrations. Modern NFL teams regularly use defensive linemen in short yardage offensive situations. It's common to see a defensive tackle lined up at fullback on the goal line. This trend started with Perry. Before 1985, the idea of using a defensive player on offense was rare. After Perry, teams realized that big, athletic defensive linemen could be effective in short yardage situations. Perry changed how NFL teams thought about personnel usage. The marketing impact of Perry can't be overstated. The 1985 Bears were already popular because they were winning and had dominant defense. But Perry made them transcend sports. The refrigerator was someone your grandmother knew about. He was on news programs, talk shows, and in commercials that had nothing to do with sports. He made the Bears a cultural phenomenon, not just a football team. This cultural impact translated into revenue. Bears merchandise sales exploded. Perry's jersey was the top seller in the NFL. The team received more national television appearances. Sponsorship deals increased. The NFL benefited financially from Perry's fame. This vindicated Ditka's decision to use Perry on offense. It might have been partly about annoying Ryan, but it was also smart business. The health consequences of playing at 335 pounds became clearer as Perry aged. His knees, ankles, and back suffered from supporting that weight while playing a violent sport. His diabetes, which developed after his playing career, was likely related to his weight. His financial problems were partly caused by medical bills. The price Perry paid for his fame included long-term health issues that he's still dealing with. This raises uncomfortable questions. Should the Bears have pushed Perry to lose more weight? Was playing at 335 pounds harmful even though it made him effective? Did the team prioritize entertainment over Perry's long-term health? These are questions that apply to many NFL players, but they're especially relevant for Perry, whose size was central to his fame. Looking back nearly 40 years later, the 1985 Bears and William Perry represent a unique moment in NFL history. A team with the greatest defense ever assembled, a head coach and defensive coordinator who hated each other, a rookie defensive tackle who became a cultural icon by playing fullback, a Super Bowl victory that was both dominant and controversial, all of it playing out on national television at a time when the NFL was becoming America's dominant sport. Buddy Ryan called William Perry a wasted draft pick. He was wrong. Perry played 10 seasons, made 2 Pro Bowls, won a Super Bowl, and changed how NFL teams think about using players in multiple positions. But more than that, Perry brought joy to millions of fans who loved watching a 335-pound man score touchdowns. That joy, that entertainment, has value, even if it's not measured in tackles or sacks. The defensive coordinator called him a wasted draft pick. Then he scored in the Super Bowl, watched by 127 million people. The refrigerator proved that in sports, as in war, those who underestimate their opponents often live to regret it. Or, in Buddy Ryan's case, watch from the press box while the player you called too fat to play scores a touchdown in the biggest game of the year.